The first suspect is usually the second victim. And today our first suspect is Twitter. Twitter, why are you like this? The streets of Twitter are so crazy. They need prayer and fasting. They need candles to be lit for them because this is just not normal. The name which they are giving now is Don Design. Like, word to Don Design, that's my hood dude. I was on the grind, you was caught up in the hype, now you ain't shining like you used to. That Don Design. He had a shout out in AKA's song. Shout out to Tao Nyewe for pointing out Don Design's name. I love the song and I missed it. Went over my head like a lot of times. And this time I was like, okay, that's an actual person. I started to do my research about him and I discovered a very dark rabbit hole. And all too often the rabbit hole is as deep as you dig it. I didn't even have to dig deep for me to find out one of the craziest conspiracy theories which is out there on Twitter. We're going to talk about Don Design a bit later and his involvement and lack of involvement. But first I'll show you the craziest conspiracy which I found. The album art. Have you ever heard of something so far-fetched you'd think there's a bit of truth in it? Hear me out. Hear me out. Listen, the 10-cent coin apparently indicates 10th February and 10 p.m., the alleged time of death of AKA. Exhibit 2. The 6 mayscopes symbolize the 6 shots which were fired at him and his colleagues. Thirdly, the skull represents the alleged gunshot to the head. Guys, we need to regulate the amount of weed we are smoking. I was drawn to this even, like, wait a minute. Guys, are you, what type of time do we have on our hands to start thinking about such stuff? Then fourthly, there's the snake bite, which they say personifies betrayal and is really so unfortunate. The only song which AKA features Don Design is called Python, because that's just adding flames to the fire which is already brewing. And lastly, the BMW Busheshe, which embodies the getaway car. I had to call the graphics designer just to find out what inspired this profound work of art. And luckily she's a close friend of mine and Trevor Noah. The system is a lie! I'm just kidding. She goes by the name of Karabo Poppy. She's a very talented illustrator and muralist, Forbes Africa 30 Under 30, and has designed 3 sold-out Air Force Ones. That was just the first theory which I found. The second one is even more mind-blowing. The killer is a woman and she was apparently at the club that night. I have to confess, at this point in the rabbit hole, I had to watch the video. I said I was not going to watch the video, but it just was pulling at me. It was really traumatizing and so final, the death. It was brutal how someone could just walk up to someone and just pull the trigger. The version which we have is not clear and conclusive, but probably the one which the police have is maybe a cleaned up version. But there are people on Twitter saying the person was a woman or maybe a thick man, we don't know. All I just hope is that the killer is brought to book and this does not end up into a cold case. Thirdly, we have Nota the authority. I will not even say a third of what he said because I cannot afford the lawyers. Yo. Just look at this screenshot and you see the flow of his thinking in the video. Fourth, this is not even a theory, but this guy looks like a killer. I'm just worried about the retaliation. I'm not even propagating, but guys, why would you kill Super Mega? He was an artist who was in his prime ever since he dropped Victory Lap. Who's going to give us those smooth and timeless classics? Lastly, Don Design. His name is being driven through the mud and that really hurts me because he's a close friend of AKA and he was just having a good time that night, and you can just imagine your regular behavior is being judged on such a large scale. Because as much as social media influencers look all polished up, in real life, most of them have like weird antics. Like for me, even. It was just recently, one of my friends told me that I put my hands in my pocket weirdly. Like honestly speaking, this is a very normal stance for me, but God forbid if I was next to someone who was skilled and I was doing that, I would look nervous. This is how I usually stand with hands in my pocket. And I'll be comfortable. Like I can just flip my thumbs
This is not. This is. Can you see the hands?
So, Don Design is a DJ, creative designer, and overall an artist. The story of how he met AKA is best explained by him.
Look, to be honest with you, how I met Kiernan was, he first of all he forgot his kicks at some show in the Free State. I managed to get them back to him, and then at that time I still had a little camera, so I was shooting like behind the scenes stuff. And I had just met Younger, and he I think he was with you guys at Ventilation when you guys were still at Marshalltown.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that, man. But when I met him, so I told him what I'm doing, and I saw that he doesn't have anyone that's shooting like BTS for him, whether it's music videos or when he's on the road and stuff like that. So I proposed that to him, and this dude didn't call me until like 6 months later. And when he called me, I didn't even know that it was him. He's like, "Yo, are you still ready to do that?" I'm like, "What? Okay, cool, let's do it."
Twitter is going crazy with all these he yawns funny and his eyes were looking nervous. Guys, have you ever yawned before? So let's be careful about the comments we are passing. I believe the police are going to bring the people to justice. Even though the video is circulating, I hope when the shooters are caught it will be admissible in the court of law. No arrests have yet to be made, but police say they know the identities of the two shooters and are still checking the identities of all those at the scene in Durban that night. Investigators are now using the suspects' data to piece together their communication and movements in the run-up to the killings, Lieutenant General Mkwawanazi told Newsroom Africa TV channel. I host a podcast and make documentaries. If you're interested in entertainment, business, and politics, please like the video and subscribe.